have to do what Jake says, okay? You all wish I was the Kevin that didn't have hair or a beard, so I know that, all right? Hey, well, good morning. First service on Time Change Sunday. Like, you get some bonus points for being here today, so well done. Who is excited? You lost an hour of sleep last night. Let's see those hands. Why are their hands up? You crazy people. Oh my goodness. Well, hey, I am so glad you are here. My name is Kevin. I am the Next Steps pastor and the small groups pastor right here in Taylor, and I am so stoked just to get to hang out with you in this capacity today as we start this brand new series called Virtue and Vice. And here's what we're going to be talking about over the next several weeks. We are all kind of a mix of both those things, right? We got some good things and some bad things going on. We're all kind of a lot like my 3-year-old son, Elijah. Like he's got like this sweetness to him that is just awesome. Like he gives me a hug every night at bedtime that like I need to see a chiropractor after. It's like, oh, it's just so wonderful. He gives me the grossest, wettest kisses that are adorable because he's 3, all right? That shouldn't go on too much past that. But we all know, like every one of us, and especially a 3-year-old, there's another side to him as well. I see this come out all the time, but I saw this come out a couple months ago when my wife was at home with the kids, and he did something, I don't remember what it was, but he did something that there needed to be a consequence for, so she put him in timeout. And he went and sat in timeout. He was not excited. He did not think that this action was justified for whatever he had done, so he was pretty angry at his mother. But anyways, he sat in timeout. My wife went over into another part of the room and began to change the diaper of our youngest child. And then she hears like water running or something. And she looks over and she makes eye contact with the 3-year-old because he's standing up, pants down, peeing all over the floor. Yes. And the fact of the matter is like this kid, whenever he does something that he knows is wrong, other times, like that time he was just blatantly like, I don't care. This is because of what you did to me. Like he does this really adorable thing. It's adorable now again, but he says, if you catch him doing something he knows he's not supposed to do, he says, might not want you to look at me. Might want you to turn around. But the fact of the matter is we all have some of those things in our life, right? We have some of those things that whether we say it out loud or not, we say to other people like, might not want you to look at this part of me. We have some things we're excited about, some of those virtuous things that we want to celebrate. They are good things. But we have some things that are flat out bad. We have some things that, they're conveniently justifiable, but they're not helping us take us in the direction that we want to go. And then we have some things that are actually some really good things in our life. But they're in the wrong priority, and they're not helping us take us in the direction we want to go in life. So over this series, what we're going to be doing is this. We want to identify self-destructive vices and replace them with life-transforming virtues. And let me give the disclaimer right at the beginning of today. Like, this is not giving anyone permission to point the finger at someone else, to nitpick what they have going on in life, all right? To say, hey, you're not good. These are all the things that you need to fix. These are the things that you need to try harder in, okay? Following Jesus isn't about simply trying harder to do the good things and simply trying harder to not do the bad things. Following Jesus is simply inviting his presence and his voice into each step of the journey. And so what we're trying to do through this series is simply point the finger at ourselves, to just give us permission to be honest with ourselves. To be honest with ourselves that there's some things inside of here, there's some habits, there's some things going on in my life and in your life that we don't want to admit. But there's also some things in our life that we don't even see. And they are taking us farther from who we were created to be. If you have your Bibles with you, you can turn over to Exodus 20. Turn on your Bible app. If you don't have a Bible, I encourage you to download the YouVersion Bible app. Very useful. And we're going to be encountering the story of the Israelites. And if you don't know who the Israelites are, let me just give you some context. So the Bible's kind of divided up into 2 main sections. You have the Old Testament and you have the New Testament. And pretty much the Old Testament is all about the Israelites. And you might be thinking, well, why is the Bible all around about this people group? Well, the fact of the matter is we as humans have proved since the very beginning of humanity to this point today that we're good at just messing things up. Like, we can't keep a good thing going. We're never going to be good enough to be with our Creator. So God launched a plan. He had a plan in place. And here's what I love about his plan. This was so much bigger that he didn't want to just wave a magic wand and say, all right, you know that sin that's in your life that you'll never escape and the death that you deserve, you're free of it. No, it was so much bigger that he rooted his plan in human history, so that we might better understand it, but also that he could show us a picture of a whole new kingdom that he was calling us into. And that's the Israelites. That's what we see kind of play out when it starts with one person, one family that turns into a whole nation. And so I think probably a lot of you, whether you grew up in church or not, you're familiar with the story of the Israelites, the whole, like, they were in Egypt, all these events kind of led them to being in Egypt. And they while they were there, they got turned into slaves. The Egyptians just kind of like, hey, these people are growing and multiplying. They're a strong nation. We don't want them to turn against me. So they just put them under like kind of the worst conditions. But God, this is God's chosen people. So God reaches in, and through all these incredible events, these plagues and these different things, God uses Charlton Heston to lead his people out. Yeah, we've seen the movie, okay? We've seen it. So we know what's happening. All right, so we're going to be in Exodus 20. So basically what's happened is the Israelites have already left Egypt. Remember the whole parting of the Red Sea, they walk across on dry land. They are free people. And we see in chapter 19, they come to the foot of this mountain. They're called Mount Sinai. Moses goes up to the top of the mountain and he says, all right, God, now what? And God says, hey, there's a lot more where that came from. Let's continue this on. Let me lead you. If you will follow me, if you will obey the things I put before you, you will prosper. So Moses goes back down and he says, all right, Israelites, here's the thing. Here's the offer from God. Here's our relationship continues. Will we follow God? Will we obey what he puts in front of us? And they say, yeah. Did you see all the things? Let's do that. So Moses goes back up and talks to God, and then God begins to lay out these values and the structure and these rules to begin to help his people, the Israelites, live as his set apart people. So let's pick up there, Exodus 20, verse 2. It says this, and this is like the beginning of the Ten Commandments. So we all know, we're just gonna be reading this first section, I think this is a lot more applicable to us than just simply the list that we usually let it be. So verse 2, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Now don't miss this. This is what he starts what we look at as just this list of rules off with him just talking about his identity. He says, I am your God. And everything that God is about to say flows from the identity of who God is, but also it flows from what he has already proven to his people. It says, don't look at anything else. Let me lead you. Verse 4, you shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. Because if you recall, why they lived in Egypt, why they grew up there, they saw the Egyptian people that had a God for everything, an image for everything. They made everything make sense by saying, hey, there's a God for it. But God is trying to remind them, you've seen what I have done. I am the one true God. Do not invent gods to make sense of this world. Just come to me, the one true God, and allow me to help you make sense of this world. It goes on, verse 5, you shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, I'm a jealous God. This jealousy flows from his heart for his people, flows for his love. And he says, I created you for more than what you will settle for. I'm a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. I mean, that feels a little rough, right? Kind of feels like, are you threatening me, God? But he's just kind of pulling out there. He's saying, no, I want you to know this isn't me just simply trying to control you. This is me helping you do what you were created for. And if you do not follow my wisdom, things will not go well. Because he continues and he says this, and you see the poetic nature of this. Verse 6, but showing love to 1,000 generations. As far down your line as you can see, of those who love me and keep my commandments. These commandments, this relationship, it flows from who God is and his love for his people. And God continues to lay out the rest of these commandments. He begins to give some farther instructions that kind of fill in the holes of these commandments. But the relationship with his people, it starts with knowing who God is and keeping God as the priority of their lives. So Moses goes back down and he tells the people, and he says, hey, this is the arrangement. This is what God says. If we will obey these laws, these are all the values and all the structure of what it looks like, what God is calling us to live like as his people. And what do the Israelites say? They're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I love systems. I love clarity. Like, man, this helps us. All right, so let's do this. We're in. And then Moses actually heads back up the mountain. He checks his Fitbit along the way. He's like, man, I am killing the competition. And goes back up the mountain and he talks with God, where God actually just continues to take the relationship to the next level, where he says, hey Moses, I don't want to just lead you. I want to be with you. But let's fast forward a little bit. Moses is up on the mountain still, and we're going to fast forward to chapter 32 of Exodus, where we come back to the people. I feel like this is where I see myself into the story, especially. We come back to the people that, again, it's been just like a couple months since they were rescued from Egypt. They've seen all this miraculous events that have gone on. And now Moses is at the top of the mountain, and they're waiting for him to come back down and, I guess, give whatever else from the Lord. We pick up in verse 1 of chapter 32. It says this, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain. Like, we're awful people when we have to wait, right? We know this. We see it in kids just trying to, like, wait for dinner. But, like, we see it in ourselves. If you ever have to wait in a line, like, traffic every day is just humanity at their worst. I remember how impatient I was with dial-up internet. Like, now, if the website doesn't load in 5 seconds, I'm out. It's like not even worth, you know what I'm talking about, right? And so like the people, again, years of, like, generations of slavery, and mere months from when they have seen God's hand work in crazy ways all along the way to the foot of Mount Sinai. And now Moses is gone for maybe a week, maybe a couple weeks. But Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain. Continue on, it says, so they gathered around Aaron and they said, come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. Oh man, how quickly do we forsake God's past faithfulness in the face of an unknown future? See, this is what I know about what we choose to worship. We would rather worship what we can see. That's the reality for the Israelites. I know that's the reality for me. I mean, who brought the Israelites up out of Egypt? It was God, right? But who was all their faith rested in? It's Moses. They say, Moses is gone, now what? We need something else. Continuing on, verse 2, Aaron answered them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me. So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him, and he made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. And then they said, these are your gods, Israel. But wait, it gets better. These are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. We would rather worship what makes us feel in control. When we gravitate to those things that make us feel like we're in control. Because what's fascinating, as they came and they said, hey, we need something else to follow. We don't know what to do. We can't see Moses anymore. Do we even have any type of connection to God? Was Moses, I don't know. And so they say, hey, can we make this thing? And what's important to realize is, like, the gold, all these earrings, they were just slaves a couple months earlier. They got all of this gold and this jewelry from the Egyptian people. Like, in fact, this gold and this jewelry, this was actually a gift from God, where as they were being released, the Egyptians just started giving them stuff. They're like, hey, get out of here. And it's like the gold is not wrong, but how they chose to use it and prioritize it is. In the face of fear, we often seek some type of control. And so They make this idol, they make this golden cow out of like their own jewelry with their own hands. Why? Well, I really believe that if this is their God, if this golden cow is their God, it makes the future feel like you know what to do. Because all we have to do from this point on is just keep the golden cow happy. All right, I guess we sacrifice things to it, we throw parties for it, and everything will go well, right? Well, that sounds ridiculous to us. But we set up these constructs in our life all the time, thinking that we have more control than we do. We gravitate to worshiping that control. And the fact is, what I've even realized in my own life in trying to purely pursue God, like the real God, like the true God, I end up worshiping his principles more than him. I turn God into this like slot machine where I said, hey, God, this is your principle. So if I do this, you'll give me this. And all I do is set up God. Like I try to use God to control to get what I really want in life. And you know what? That works sometimes until it doesn't. And I get ready to throw it all out the window. Continuing on. So the next day, the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. And afterward, they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. That's a good word right there. It's not like a PG party. It's not one you probably take your kids to. Here's the thing, what we choose to worship, like we gravitate towards worshiping the way we want to. Because at the end of the day, we as people, we want to do whatever we want to, right? And that's the convenient thing. When you make whatever God you want, you can worship him however you want. Well, continuing on, when Moses, let's fast forward just a little bit, to verse 19. When Moses approached the camp, and he saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. These are like the tablets that God wrote on himself. And he took the calf the people had made, and some of you don't know this is in the Bible, or you forgot this was in the Bible. He took the calf the people had made, he burned it in the fire, then he ground it to powder, and then he scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. Man, Moses. I don't know about you, I feel like he's kind of living out every parent and teacher's dream, in some ways, just rubbing their face in their own stupid. Not you? Okay, not me either. That's, whew, good. Glad we got that cleared up. Okay, but seriously, reading this from the big picture, it looks like we're just as angry as Moses. We're like, how ridiculous can you be, you Israelites? But the thing is, what's true with the Israelites is true for us. We're actually all worshiping something. We are all worshiping something because the fact of the matter is we were made to worship. We were hardwired to worship. But we gravitate to worshiping the creation over the Creator. We devote ourselves to what we can see. We gravitate to pursue what makes us feel in control, and we justify the way that we want to live anyways. We substitute the lesser things for the greatest. We see it play out with the Israelites, and if we're honest with ourselves, we see it play out in our own lives every day. The Apostle John, in his letter, 1 John, he says this at the very end, the very conclusion of his letter. He says this, "Dear children, keep yourselves from idols." And I love the way that the New Living Translation translators tried to really dig into what is this meaning as he ends off this letter. And this speaks so core to us. He says this in the New Living Translation, "Dear children, keep away from anything that might take God's place in your heart." Because the thing is, our vices, those things we're not proud of in our life, they flow from what we worship. So let me ask you that question today. What is taking God's place in your heart? What is that for you? There's some things that are bad. We know that. Cocaine's bad, okay? We know, can we raise a hand? Cocaine's a bad thing? There are not near enough hands up. So some of you need to pray for the person sitting next to you, all right? But seriously, like there's, and I don't want to like overplay that too, because like there's things like that in our lives in here that are serious that we need to reach out, we need to seek help on. But what I know is we live this game of comparison where if we don't have those bad of things that are going on, we don't feel like we have to deal with things that in the long term are just as destructive. And so there's things in our life that they're not bad in moderation. Food, shopping, Netflix, social media, video games. There's things that are not necessarily bad in moderation, but there's even things that are really, really good things. But when we let them take the wrong priority in their lives, they lead us in a direction that we were not created for. That is not healthy, that is not wise. And so really, as we start off with the series today, I just want you to continue just to examine your own heart. Remember, just pointing that finger at yourself, not in condemnation, just in honesty and exploration. So I want to ask you a couple questions as we kind of wrap up this morning. Ask you just a couple of questions, and maybe you need to write down the questions. Maybe you don't need to just write down some answers to this. There's going to be 4 questions here in just a moment, and or maybe you just need to take a picture so you can think about this more. But I just want you to think about yourself as we try to get to some of these things in our life. And the reality is for me and probably for you, there's a lot. There's a lot of these things that kind of take the place, a lot of these idols that I set up. And so first question is this: what do you sacrifice time and money for? Just think about that. What do you sacrifice time and money for? Because our calendars and our bank accounts don't lie. They show what we value. It's one reason that Jesus talked about money almost more than anything else. It's one reason we try to talk about generosity every week, because God doesn't want your money, but he does want our hearts. So what do you sacrifice your time and money for? Next question: what do you obsess about? What do you obsess about? What do you worry about? What do you believe could harm you more than God could actually help you? Maybe that's an idol you set up in your life without even realizing it. Maybe obsess is just something you think about. It's not from a place of fear, it's from a place of excitement, but you think about it all the time. When you're not doing that thing, when you're not with that person, whatever it is, you just think about the next time you will. Next question: whose applause do you long for? I mean, that's in this social media world, that's probably a deeper one. We do it online, but we do it offline just the same. Whose applause do you long for? Last question is this: what do you turn to in crisis? What do you turn to in crisis? Because where we turn in crisis shows where we believe the power actually is. And again, maybe you just need to take your phone out and take a picture of those real quick, because this is worth considering. This is worth asking ourselves, even when we go into the counter time here in just a moment, because here's why this hangs in the back. This is why this is so important. What you worship determines the direction of your life. What you worship determines where you're going in life and where you will end up. So through this series, you got handed one of these cards. It says Virtue and Vice on the front of it. And we kind of have a challenge for you that we just want to kind of make for all of us. And these are going to be some cards, kind of a tool to help us grow in awareness and grow in dependence of God. And this isn't something you have to do. Do not take this at all as well, they said I had to. But I would encourage you to lean in that this might be something that's really healthy for you to do. And I can tell you that I am committing to this over the life of this series because I'm preaching and I have to. But also because I want to. But seriously, what this is a tool for is to help us take on this rhythm or this practice of fasting. And if you don't know what fasting is simply giving something up that you would normally need or normally want and replacing it with something else for at least a certain period of time. And so what we're going to do is each week there is a different challenge of just kind of self-denial. And this first week, with the time change and everything, it's caffeine. I know. It's jerks. But seriously, like I'm a parent of 4 kids, but way more than that, like caffeine, like coffee, not just caffeine, coffee, that's like my daily oasis, all right? Some of you know it, like, oh, it's not just about the caffeine. There's just like this wonderful environment. Anyways, but so what we want to challenge you to do is just over this week, again, it says caffeine/alcohol. You can choose if you want both of those, if you want to make that an and or, however you want to interpret that. This isn't about bonus points, okay? This isn't about, there's nothing extra you get. Like, this is just something for us to grow in awareness of our own life so that we can grow in our dependence on God. And so what we want to challenge you to do is maybe at that time that you specifically make coffee every morning, or make coffee, like 4 times a day, whatever that looks like. Or maybe just those times that you would normally have that drink. Or maybe you just have the desire for it and it comes up. I want you just to replace that with a simple prayer. And it can be anything. It can be anything, but maybe it just needs to simply be, God, help me to be more dependent on you. God, help me just to be aware that you are present with me. God, help me to be more aware that you are calling me to continue to follow you, to take a step. Maybe there's something in your life that you, every time you have the desire for whatever that thing is, you just choose to pray for that. Also at the bottom of the card, it says, and I'm praying for. You can just write, maybe there's one prayer focus for all month, for all these weeks of this series. And that can be something about you. That can be something about one of your friends that you know is going through a rough time. Maybe there's someone that you say, hey, they need Jesus, and I'm just going to pray for them for the rest of the series. Even invite them to come with you and sit with you on Easter Sunday. I don't know what that is for you, but let's use this time, let's use this to examine and to evaluate our lives this week. As we answer the question, who or what are you worshiping? Because what you are worshiping is determining the direction of your life. We're going to continue into our time of encounter. And this is a time that we do every week.